As a group, we chose the film subgenre psychological thrillers for our teaser trailer, as we were inspired from contemporary media texts such as the television show Black Mirror. What gripped us most about Black Mirror was the thought-provoking effect it had on us, and we tried to use that aspect in our trailer with a complex narrative that involves multiple characters which represent different parts of the protagonist's character. We also looked at some teaser trailers of the same genre, such as Split, Shutter Island, Psycho, and Silence of the Lambs. From these trailers, we noticed the common codes and conventions such as the dim lighting, a male protagonist who display mental instability, continuous violence, and death, which we brought into our trailer. One of the main codes and conventions of a psychological thriller is dim lighting, which we noticed through analysing the trailers of Silence of the Lambs from 1996, Shutter Island from 2010, and Split from 2017. The effect of dim lighting is used in all four film trailers we studied, as it is a way of showing the character's dark side, and to create a sense of unease amongst the viewer. This is normally associated with psychological thrillers because this creates a fear of the unknown through the darkness, which we also used in our trailer by choosing dark locations and using minimal lighting. Another common code and convention of a psychological thriller films is the location. As noticed in the 3 trailers we studied, there is a recurrence of the use of rundown building locations, inside and outside. We took particular inspiration from the film Split, where the location was in an underground abandoned basement with dim lighting, showing how it was very excluded from society. We wanted again to have a similar effect on the viewer, which makes the audience feel as if there is no escape for the character. This is also clear in the 2 other films we studied, being Silence of the Lambs and Split, as the dilapidated location also personifies the insanity of some of the characters within these films. It is also of an uncomfortable effect on the audience, as it is usually a place associated with horror, meaning danger is imminent. Another key feature of psychological thriller films is a male protagonist who has a troubled background which triggers their actions. This was made clear in Shutter Island through the main character of Teddy Daniels, who traumatically discovered his wife drowning his children, and who also had flashbacks of his experiences liberating a concentration camp in World War II. This is also clear in the other film studies such as Silence of the Lambs, as it gives the audience a gradual insight into the reason for the mental instability of the main character. This is seen in our own trailer through our protagonist's addiction to alcohol, which eventually leads to his health getting worse and then entering into a comatic state. These codes and conventions are highly important as it creates the intended effect of a psychological thriller, which is to create suspense and confusion amongst the audience. It also helps the audience understand what type of film they are watching. When the genre of the film is clear through the depiction of the clear genre conventions, then the audiences who are particularly interested in that genre are more likely to watch the film. We also tried using similar music to that of Split, as the high-pitched non-diegetic music creates an uncomfortable viewing experience. This is something we wanted to bring into our product and took particular inspiration by. In our research of real media text of the psychological thriller genre, we also noticed the use of a crescendo at certain points in the film, which was normally in scenes of high tension. As well as music, we noticed in all 4 trailers that there was a series of quick editing to show continuous action in the film. We also used this effect in our trailer as it gives the audience more of an idea of the plot of the trailer, and it also shows that there is drama throughout, keeping the viewer engaged. Another code of convention we noticed after analysing other real media texts of the psychological genre was the male protagonist. The protagonist appears in almost every scene of the production, as this is common in psychological thriller trailers, as this character is the main focal point of the narrative. In all 4 trailers we analysed, men are stereotypically seen to be stronger and are normally associated with murder and violence, and so ensured our main character is male. In all film trailers of the psychological thriller we studied, another theme we noticed was the victimization of female characters. This is most noticeable in Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, as Marion Crane is murdered, but is also seen in modern films such as Split. Furthermore, in Shutter Island we noticed the colour connotation of certain costumes. At the start of the trailer, Teddy Daniels, being Leonardo DiCaprio, is dressed in a suit with a sheriff badge and a hat showing his position of authority in the film, which then later changes to a white jumpsuit which shows his authority and mental state is questioned, signifying his poor mental state as well as his naivety towards his own insanity. We try bringing this into our trailer by focusing on the connotations of certain colours to represent our protagonist, and we dressed our character in a blue coat and jeans signifying his intelligence, and a black jumper showing his instability and temptation because our protagonist is an alcoholic. Through the problems with alcohol faced by our protagonist, it shows he has a misperception of the world, and this is what led to his problems, and that alcohol is the solution to these misperceptions. Another noticeable aspect of the locations in Shutter Island through the use of a lighthouse, which is polysemic, as it connotes isolation and hope, as the protagonist invests all his hope in the lighthouse being a place where patients of the victims are brought to. Linking to our trailer, the isolated location used is a signifier of danger and possibly murder, which is very polysemic. Our trailer graphics use a house style of black and white, which is common in psychological thrillers such as in the trailer of Split, as it shows the deranged personality of the protagonist, which we also wanted to show in our product. Furthermore, also in black and white in the Split trailer, it says, "From the writer and director of The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Signs and The Visit," which demonstrates the accreditation of the director. It also allows the audience to make connections with other films they may have seen before. It also connects the writer and director to a filmic's house style, which can allow the film to appeal to a wider audience. We also apply this effect to our trailer by adding a graphic that connects the trailer to our previous work from the director and producer of The White Russian and Eastern Rules. As seen in many other trailers, we use captions linking to the plot of the film, such as "There is only one way out," which keeps the audience aware of the plot of our trailer and grabs the attention of the viewer. We use the font style to other films of the same genre to stick to the common conventions of a psychological thriller trailer. Furthermore, we included institution graphics of Paramount and our own house production graphic to make our trailer to appear more professional, as well as a film rating certification which appears in most film trailers, which again adds to it looking legitimate. In our film trailer, we have used colours of black and white for our trailer graphics, which is a common code or convention of a psychological thriller, as said before, as it connotes evil as well as hope, which reflects the different personality types in our production. A common convention of a psychological thriller is jump cuts, which are used many times in our trailer to link scenes together, although they are in some cases in different locations. Black fade-out transitions are very common, as it often creates suspense, which we used after every scene to link to the next one in dramatic effect, which is used in most psychological thriller trailers. Dialogue is also of high importance, being key in the conventions of a psychological thriller trailer, as although it is kept minimal as we use in our production, it is always of vital importance to give a clearer understanding to the audience of the plot. We attempted to not show too much of the plot to our audience, as in real media text this allows for more audience interest in what could happen, rather than what has happened. Furthermore, we use cliffhangers throughout our trailer, such as when our protagonist attempts to break out of the location, but we don't see the end product. The effect of this was to entice our viewer, as they wanted to see the consequences and conclusion. We also didn't include an introduction to our characters, apart from our protagonist, in order to create an enigma into who the binary opposition characters are in the film. Before starting the production of our trailer, I had an image as to what our trailer would look like, which we accurately addressed. We showed the stereotype of the binary opposition between men and women, as our protagonist, being a male, is searching for hope, who is a female. We also chose to conform to the stereotype, whereas the woman is victimized, with the male being the protagonist, as this is a common convention in a psychological thriller. We did challenge some forms of traditional conventions, such as through the sole use of natural lighting, which in the majority of real media texts, artificial light is used. We used this as we felt the natural lighting worked perfectly with the location, as it again shows the isolation of our protagonist. It also creates a more modern, minimalistic, contemporary theme, which is unusual for the psychological thriller genre. At the pre-production stage, we thoroughly analysed 3 magazine front covers, while also looking at another 7 so we could design our own to be as effective as possible in attracting more viewers to our film. We took particular inspiration by Total Film's Shutter Island front cover, as it stuck to the conventions of a psychological thriller through the colour connotations. The font is red, signifying blood and danger, which are common themes of our genre. We noticed in the other magazine front covers of the psychological thrillers, the protagonist is the main focal point, which we copied on our front cover. We mainly use red and white as the common colours through our magazine front cover, as the white signifies the hope of our protagonist who dominates the front cover, as well as his innocence, which encourages empathy and sympathy from the audience to the protagonist. The red signifies the theme of death and violence, which is a key convention of our genre, giving the audience an idea into the plot of our film. We made the masthead red in order for it to stand out above the other taglines, informing the reader the name of the magazine. Our taglines were usually a mixture of red and white to show how we adapted the house style. During the filming process, we took a still image of our protagonist looking out the window. We cropped our protagonist out the window in order that we only see the view that he had. In addition to this, we took a picture of our protagonist against the wall with a shadow on his face. Due to lighting, which again is a convention of other magazine front covers, when showing the protagonist. We put the still of our protagonist in the background of the window, showing that he is trapped, gaining the audience an idea of the plot. The makeup and hair is naturalistic so as to keep the authenticity of the character within the modern. We took another still of our protagonist with his hands covering his face, showing his loss of identity through his problems with alcoholism. Again, this is a key convention of the genre, as the protagonist is the main focal point of the front cover. Again, there is also dim lighting, which shows the fear he has of his temptation through alcoholism. To create a sense of mystery for the viewer, we added dark tints to the edges of our magazine front cover, suggesting a horror aspect to our film. This is also a key common convention of a psychological thriller. We included cover lines to entice our audience, such as "Locked In Exclusive." This makes the audience aware of the name of the film as well as its success, which would draw them in, as the wording is similar to that of other magazine front covers, such as from Empire's Harry Potter when it says on the cover line, "Massive Preview Exclusive." This has a similar effect to our cover line, as it highlights the significance of our film. On top of this, Empire's I Am Legend magazine front cover also has a cover line which reads, "In New York for Will Smith's epic sci-fi horror." This gives the audience insight into what to expect in the film, which we use on our front cover saying, "Inside Olney's Madhouse." We feel from our work on the magazine front cover, particularly after analysing many other real media texts, we have achieved a professional design. This is mainly seen through the house style of red and white, which has been achieved, as well as the formatted cover lines, such as Top 20 Horror Films. We also included a secondary feature using a still from our AS project, which looks like a still from a crime/gang film. We took inspiration from the magazine Total Film with the addition of Shutter Island, as their secondary feature was Avatar. We also used a puff feature when we mentioned Top 20 Horror Films, to show what the magazine is offering in bold to entice the audience and to reaffirm the target audience of the magazine. On the front cover, we used the anchorage text "Inside Olney's Madhouse," which draws in the audience and is a convention of the genre. This draws in the viewer through describing the plot of the film and the genre being a psychological thriller, and as an audience it makes them want to know more about our protagonist, Will Olney. This is a common convention of the genre, as it portrays the poor mental state of our protagonist, which appears in all 4 film trailers we analysed. The main protagonist is often the main visual connection the audience has to the film. It is the protagonist's story which the audience should want to see, so that appeal and connection is the most important to market to gain more viewers. We included our main protagonist on the front cover as the focal point, as it was a way in which the audience meets our main character before watching the film, so they have more insight into what to expect. The audience also see the costume of our protagonist, which has many connotations through the colour scheme of their dress wear. At pre-production, we conducted a lot of analysis into other posters, and we noticed a recurring simplicity which we applied to our own trailer. We took particular inspiration from the butterfly effect and applied this minimalistic poster format to our own, but chose to conform to a more contemporary house style. This simplicity also occurs in the poster of The Shining, where the director's name, Stanley Kubrick, alone signifies the accreditation of the film. We use common conventions such as a dark background, contrasting lighting, as well as black and white colours, which creates a simpler, minimalistic look. It is important to adhere to the conventions, as it gives the audience more of an understanding into the genre of the film, which will then in turn encourage more of our target audience to view the full film. The house style allows the audience to recognise the genre of the films, as it sets a dark tone which is portrayed in our trailer. By seeing the posters of other psychological thrillers such as Psycho, Shutter Island, Split and Silence of the Lambs, we chose to conform to a dark background with a house style of black and white. We also chose to make our protagonist stand out in our poster to inform the audience of the role of his character. There was also editing involved in the poster, in which the protagonist is the focal point, and there are effects used displaying the themes of the film, such as in Silence of the Lambs, where there is a death moth foreshadowing the theme of violence and death in the film. We feel our trailer accurately develops the forms and conventions of real media products. After thoroughly analysing the trailers of Split, Psycho, Shutter Island and Silence of the Lambs, we gained a strong understanding into what is required visually of a psychological thriller trailer. We apply many of the common codes and conventions of a psychological thriller trailer, such as costume. Lighting was another highly important convention, particularly made clear in films such as Silence of the Lambs and Split. This is highly important as it creates a filmic sense of mystery which puts the audience on edge. After analysing real media film posters of the psychological thriller genre, we noted the simplicity with which the protagonist is presented, and for the audience the first sighting of the protagonist is through the poster, or the magazine front cover, as they form an opinion from this, highlighting its importance. In a psychological thriller, there is usually a common theme of black and white, showing the poor mental state as well as the possible duplicity of personalities of the character, which is an important aspect of the media language. Furthermore, we adhered to the convention of minimal text except from short hints into what the film is about, and the names of people involved in the making of the film, but the images are what forms the opinion of the audience. Overall, we have followed the codes and conventions of the genre as much as we felt would be effective in making our film appeal as much as possible to our target audience. But we did challenge the conventions slightly by creating a more contemporary minimalistic look, which we felt was more modern and original.